The 2017 budget announcement by the Finance Minister rolled into the rail budget as the first time we heard that happen, but a huge takeaway there for the real estate sector. Peppered through that entire speech, there were various announcements for the housing and the real estate sector. Lots of mention of the middle class, tweaking of the taxation on various sets of people. Like the Finance Minister mentioned, there are a couple of aims that he wanted to achieve with this budget, one of which was expanding the tax base, bringing in more accountability, removal of black money, that battle that the government wants to follow through with, and of course improving accountability in governance. Now the question really is how much of that is going to be achieved by the announcements that we saw. And I want to start off obviously by what was announced last, which is the changes in our taxation system. And I'll go to Anil Harish for this. It seems like a huge change to move 2.5 lakh and 5 lakh to 5%. But what that effectively means is a 12.5 lakh rupee discount for all of us, which is a little over 1,000 rupees a month. It's not a big deal. It seems like a lot. Do you think it'll achieve the aim that the Finance Minister wanted, which is more accountability in our tax system?
It sounds good. It's not very effective for those with higher incomes, but I think it's a good step because we do need to get more people into the tax net.
Yes.
So I think that's nice. He has not talked about estate duty in his speech. I'm just waiting to read the annexures, and I hope that he's not introduced estate duty because that was the fear this time.
Also, there was one big change. I know that the entire real estate industry was happy with. We heard some cheering in the room. Long-term capital gains tax on land and housing down to 2 years instead of the mandated 3 years, which is what we were accustomed to. What sort of a difference will that make?
That will definitely make a difference, but more than that will be using 2001 as the base year for the purpose of indexation. That will make a huge difference because now, let's say in a city like Mumbai, the 1981 value was approximately 1,000 rupees for the high-end homes. But the 2001 value may be 20 or 30,000 rupees for the high-end homes, and then if you index that, then there's not that much tax to pay. So that will make a big difference.
That will make a big difference. Anuj, happy so far?
I'm very happy actually. I mean, just before the budget speech, we spoke a number of things, and I think is that 2 or 3 of them, he actually perhaps listened to what we were discussing and he got it incorporated. And certainly on the affordable housing phase. Getting in the infrastructure status, which means cheaper loans, more loans available, perhaps more transparency, less compliance. The second thing is, which we were discussing, that the definition of the affordable home needs to be tweaked. He's tweaked it, I won't say 100%, but in his own words, he said it's 30% more.
How much, how much of a difference will that make? Because we know that given the current affordable housing definition, there wasn't too much uptake in that space.
Yeah.
So changing that, from built up to carpet, will that make much of a difference?
Which is, as he said in his speech, he said is about 30% of that is, as I said, it's not 100%. We would have expected that 30 square meters should have gone to really 50 or 60 square meters. This way it goes up to about 40 square meters, but still better. And the second is, giving it an infrastructure status. That helps. To Anil Harish's point on the capital gains, I certainly think the secondary market will start to prosper now. And say that's been stopped for a very long time because of 2 things. That the indexation clearly 2001, I think that's when the appreciation in the properties happened from 1980 to 2000. And so you're going to see lesser capital gains. And the second is that it's only now 2 years. So you're going to perhaps see over the next 12 months that people will start to trade up. And that's where my thought is that the Finance Minister is looking at that there's unsold finished inventory. How do we make sure that people trade up to that? And that's one of the reasons that he's brought in reduced capital gains and a better indexation.
But Govind, obviously, from the calculations that have been done for the government's Housing for All target, which is now for 2022 not very far away from where we are. We need to build 3 million homes per year. Will any of the announcements in this budget take us closer to 3 million homes a year?
I think the construction side of it depends on the people who are going to choose to build. So they first of all have to see light at the end of the tunnel if they want to build that volume of housing. There was a very strong focus on affordable housing. So I think that should give a lot of at least psychological confidence to people that look, the government is keen to do this. the change from 60 square meter to effectively maybe 90 square meter, I think is very material, because you start moving to sizes which start becoming quite meaningful actually. If you look at the, the GI Bill in the US when it was set up, they also had started only with 800,000 square feet kind of places. So it's actually quite sufficient in that sense. I think the other thing which I would bring to light is there's a strong Keynesian kind of approach to this budget. There's a huge amount of government expenditure on a number of schemes that are mentioned over here. Now, the question, of course, is how effectively the government can implement some of these schemes. Some of that is going to, I think, result in job creation. And a lot of the huge demand that we saw in the 2004, 5, 6 kind of period was because there were just new people coming into jobs who then wanted houses. Some of that job creation appeared to have tapered off in the last 3 or 4 years. And I think that is what will also cause some of this demand and encourage people to build these houses.
Well, the definition, like you said, of affordable housing right now, and the industry status that has been awarded to affordable housing. So then, shall we assume that that industry status follows that same definition of 60 square meters carpet? When we talk about industry status, is it only those developers who build in that definition? Because the definition there, in that case, was about taxation when he talked about it one more time. So are we making the assumption that the definition for affordable housing as an industry is for that?
It's a very good point, Fabe. So my understanding is that is what the definition now is. That it's actually, he said, it's 30 square meters in the 4 metropolitan cities, and saying this is now carpet area, and built up area to carpet area is an additional 30% of that is. But my understanding is that the affordable housing definition has changed not only from a tax perspective but also from an infrastructure status perspective. That is the way that I have read it through the speech, as being redefined for both the taxation purpose as well as for considering it as an infra sector.
Well, I just want to understand from your point of view as well as industry. Was this a fulfilling budget? Will this solve the problems that industry is facing right now? Because we know there are a lot of problems.
Definitely the problem, the overall budget is very, very impressive. We are, industry body is happy with overall budget changes, and all suggestions are given in the budget. Things are really quite positive. It will definitely boost affordable housing. The definition of affordable housing, 32 built up to carpet area, plus metropolitan limiting to that, and then all other area is also exempted. So if we are talking about other than Mumbai, Thana and all, now comes under the definition of 60 square meter carpet area, that will definitely boost a lot of supply. Definitely developers' perspective point of view will work on that, and defined as an infrastructure status, being incentive also from the bank funding also will definitely help from the developers' perspective. So developers' body, I think we are happy with whatever the changes have come. I think it should definitely lead to a larger supply in the market. The Prime Minister dreamed to achieve that by 2022. This is in the right direction.
Right, now here's the question that I really want to ask. We started off before the budget talking about what middle-class housing truly is, or what affordable housing truly should be in comparison to low-income housing, which is what the Finance Minister is talking about. My question is, for the average person who wants to buy a home, will this announcement make it any easier for them?
Yeah, I think so. See, what is happening is that when you exempt the income tax, the profit on it, I think there is a huge incentive for the developer to complete the project within a given time. So, I mean, some of us, or rather the industry, would now start coming out with schemes with, say, pay 2%, 5%, pay later, because the whole incentive is that if I'm coming out with 500 flats, I want to ensure that I have bookings for 400 flats within 6 months or 3 months of the booking. And then I have the bank, because of the infrastructure status, at 1% or 2% plus then the MCLR. So effective finance cost, which was earlier 50%, comes down to 20%. And because of the 34% tax profit, now I say give half of it to the customer. And so what happens is that the price will come down, the financing will become better, the completion will be better, and hence the stock will be delivered to the people.
There was always a challenge, of course, of the cost of land for these projects.
Yes, I was about.
There's no mention of the cost of land. Yes. Do you think infrastructure status will now award developers the ability to borrow to buy land?
See, I think most of the agreements now are on a joint development, and I think the biggest thing that has come up is that if the landowner were to do a JD and he is going to get his profit only on completion. That's a very big incentive. And I think all over the world, developers don't pay money for buying the land. I mean, they give an initial deposit and it's revenue sharing or something like this only. But one thing I want to still can't understand is that under Section 80EE, the affordable housing cost was 50 lakhs.
Right.
So, let's look at Thana, Mira Road. You don't get a 2-bedroom home at 50 lakhs. You get it far more than that. So one has to see whether this 50 lakh limit has been increased or not, whether that has gone up or not. Otherwise, you have the size taken off, but because of the cost limitation, you will not be able to get the advantage of it.
All right. I really want to focus right now on being able to build the homes that we need, and the fact that this is still an industry that is, let's be honest, frozen in a bad market. What are the biggest takeaways right now from the budget that will thaw out the market that we're in? Mr. Harish?
I think that generally he said that he's going to simplify things by aiming at eliminating black money and the digital economy. While all of these may not directly affect real estate, these will have an impact on the movement of funds and of more transparency. The ones that relate to real estate, of course, have been specified that it will become from 3 years to 2 years, therefore there will be more money available in the hands of people. Then, as was pointed out just now, the builders will start producing faster, trying to complete. So I think there will be an impact on account of all these different factors.
Anuj?
So two things I would say is we'll need to look at it. One is that I felt is there's going to be more money in the hands of the buyers. Certainly in that category, if you look at it, which is really where we're targeting the affordable housing, so whether it's the tax exemptions or the way that it was laid out, I feel is that the finance minister has tried to bring in more money in the hands of the buyers.
Technically, 12,500 rupees a year is not enough enough liquidity to be able to buy a house.
Yeah, but the guys, who are below 5 lakh rupees, that income tax rate has only come to really 5%. And, the way that he outlined it, that in many of the circumstances, you'd actually not be even paying the income taxes. So certainly, I think there is more in the hands of the buyers that he has tried to bring in. And on the other hand, on the cost side, clearly an infrastructure status, my guess is you'll have not only benefit in a reduced financing cost, but you'll also get, say, a lot more banks wanting to give you because it's infra status today. So, there will be that ease of being able to get in the financing and the lower cost. And I certainly believe is, the point that had come in JV-JD. Today the biggest problem was the moment you sign a JV-JD, there is a capital gains tax that you have to pay. And the landowner was saying is, well, I'm not really receiving the money on an accrual basis. If there's going to be a capital gain tax, I'm not wanting to do that. Now he's pushed it out. So somebody's really, calculated it well to say is, we can't influence the cost of land. And say they can't. It's a private transaction between you and me. What can we do to bring down the land cost is the things where he's come in, the capital gain tax being deferred till the completion of the project, the infrastructure status bringing down the interest cost, the income tax exemption on the affordable housing. So you're bringing down the cost and you're bringing in more empowerment with more resources in the hands of the buyers.
There is another concern for the industry, or indirectly a concern for the industry, which is the sector, the portion of the industry that was hurting the most was the upper or the luxury space. There is a 10% now added surcharge on anyone whose taxable income is 50 lakh rupees and above. That's technically the target audience for the luxury space. Is this going to hurt more?
No.
And 10% is a lot.
I think it's very clear that the budget was not focused at making things easier for the luxury space. So, and I think long before the finance minister figured this out, builders have figured this out, that, the luxury space is not moving like other spaces. And therefore, I think they have themselves brought in a degree of self-regulation as far as the luxury space is concerned. So I agree that the 10% is, that 15% surcharge actually on the 50 to 1 lakh is not a small sum. Yes. It might discourage some amount of luxury buying. But I think that that can be more than offset by other, let's say, freebies or discounts that are being offered. But in the rest of the space, I think the confidence that the builder community should get out of this is quite substantial. The tax, let's say, break on the joint development is a very big thing, I would guess, for most people. So if builders who have multiple projects, one may be luxury, 5 may be in the middle segment, if they have a lot more confidence to go out in the market knowing that tomorrow is going to be better than today, I think that should encourage them, in fact, to push more into the market. I would expect that behavior, given that there's still a lot of stock in the market.
Was there a difference in tone in this message of the budget towards the real estate industry than what we've heard from the government for the last 1 year, which is basically a view that the industry is full of the big bad wolf and needs to quickly be wrapped on the knuckles? It did seem that there was a kinder view coming in from this budget.
I mean, I think he spent maybe 15% of his speaking time on real estate in one form or another. So I don't think in terms of application of mind one could have expected a lot more as such. Maybe an expansion of the classical Section 80 tax break or whatever would have been maybe one more thing that one may have liked. That would have helped the mid segment as opposed to the affordable segment, the 50 to 70 lakh kind of flat houses. That one maybe was a small miss, but
a large
maybe they were not.
actually.
Yeah, maybe they were not. Maybe they were not. The focus of this government has been very clearly on the sub 15 lakh segment.
But what it seems that he mentioned was that between the 50 lakh to 1 crore limit, there'd be an increase in the surcharge, but not above 1 crore. So if you're talking about the luxury segment, then it is not affected to that extent. I think that's what he said.
Only. So it's only 50 lakhs to 1 crore.
That's what he
But
seems
1
to say.
crore and above, 1 crore and above already has a surcharge on it.
Yes, but it doesn't go up.
It doesn't go up. That surcharge remains.
Band of 50 to 1 crore that it goes up.
All right. So for anybody who makes 50 lakh rupees or between 50 lakh rupees and a crore, after you've taken all of your deductions from Section 80C and the rest, then you are going to be paying a substantially higher tax. Did it make a difference for you that the tone coming out of the government this time was different towards the real estate sector as opposed to the tone we've heard, for example, when the government has been talking about RERA?
I think one thing that the budget, I'm not directly answering to your question.
I can see that.
Is the sentiment. Real estate goes by sentiment. And I think what the finance minister has said is that sentiment for the industry to now go ahead. So, in two ways. See, as it is, those who didn't have home, due the Prime Minister Awas Yojana interest subvention, which was already announced. So I think those things were already taken out. So that was on the demand side. Now on the supply side, he has cleared a lot of roadblocks. And with the capital gain being 2 years, ready to move in now will become a great thing. Because people, once they have sold within 2 years, they look forward to buy immediately. Yes. So ready to move in or almost ready to move in will get a very big boost. And with the GST coming in, so there is a double whammy, for people to buy ready to move in homes. That's number one. And
because you're not paying any sort of GST or service tax on construction.
Right. And second is the sentiments have gone up tremendously, I think. So these two things I would say are the takeaway for the budget.
There was an announcement also of 1 crore houses by 2019 for those who are living in kacha homes right now or don't have homes. Right. Do you believe that the government has the ability to build those homes without a private partnership? Because then we're looking at agencies like the SRA or MADA to actually construct them. Do they have the ability to actually construct 1 crore homes in that short deadline?
Given the history of the all government and PSU, whoever have developed MADA or SRA, it is a highly impossible task unless they go with a private partnership. So PPP model of any joint development is the only viable media to achieve the numbers. But the thing is, what numbers of 1 crore houses they are expecting is in a rural area, not in a tier 1, tier 2 city or tier 3 city. So in that area also, of course, government machinery, along with that private developer who's doing affordable housing of 3 to 7 lakhs, 8 lakhs budget and all, with them private-public partnerships are definitely a better solution to achieve the numbers. And there are a lot of incentives were given prior to budget on that things on 31st December, which Prime Minister himself announced. In that bracket, it may become attractive to the private developer to participate and take a position in that area and to achieve up to 1 crore houses of that numbers. But of course, it's a big challenging task too, with the private developer also, with the government.
Are you building, obviously, I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are you building anything in the government's definition of 60 square meters carpet? And do you think now with the current incentive, you might go ahead and build something in that bracket?
The 60 square meter carpet for the developers in Mumbai and all, it wasn't possible. Now with the change in definition in the budget, definitely Thana and other belt further, it falls into that definition. So we definitely intend to propose a scheme under 60 square meter carpet area, which definitely we need to work on it, and then we would
What's
definitely...
standing in the way right now? What are the challenges?
Challenges, of course, we'll have to study in detail about the proposal. There is a
50
for the affordable housing definition also need to be clarified properly. Maybe the attached section, which they have not yet announced here, we'll have to go through fine tune and understand the things. But we, developer, would definitely be interested in jumping into that 60 square meter carpet area for various non-metro area, where non-metro area is totally covered.
This is an interesting challenge that we're facing, especially in the Mumbai-Thane area, where we're talking about 60 square meters carpet, and the challenge is, do you want to be able to price it above 50 lakh rupees?
Yes. See, today, you look at 60 square meter carpet is equal to about 80-85 meters built up. And today, the minimum construction cost because considering we have to give use for parking, everything, will be about 4,000 to 5,000 rupees a square feet. I'm considering on the 80 meters.
Yes.
What happens is, in order to build a home of 80 meters, the construction area is 130 meters, when you consider basement, parking and everything. So, 35 to 40 lakhs is the cost of the construction itself.
Just a quick, conversion for the benefit of our viewers. 60 square meters is how many, square feet?
60 square meters carpet area.
Yes.
Will be about 670 square feet carpet area.
670 square feet.
Yes.
So the average one bedroom in Mumbai.
No, two bed. Two bed. I mean, what is
it will be about 900 square feet.
So the point
So
is
proper
that
two-bedroom planning can be worked out in the 60 square meter carpet.
So the challenge is that the government's definition of affordable housing by size still falls far. I mean, we'd price it at what, 1 crore rupees in Mumbai?
No, it would. In Mumbai, you're talking of?
Yes.
Sorry, I would say is in Thane.
Yes.
Would you be able to do it? Because if you look at it, he hasn't really changed that definition.
Yes.
What he has changed is 30 square meters in the 4 metro cities within the city. He hasn't really touched the 60 square meter definition.
Yes.
So to Faye's point, that really hasn't been changed.
Right.
60 square meters or 50 lakhs, that continues to remain the same.
Yes.
And that challenge would have been there, otherwise we would have seen more affordable housing, and he's not touched it. What he has amended is that the 30 square meters, he's made it into, say, 40 square meters with 30% built up area added on to that is. So my guess is,
to answer my question is, fundamentally 60 square meters either in Mumbai or Thane, you can't get for less than 50 lakh rupees. So,
yes.
In Mumbai, it's a question of 30 square meters. It's not 60 square meters here.
Yes.
It's 60 square meters outside. So therefore, if you take it, let's say 650 square feet, because carpet area. If you take a selling price of about 8,000 or 7,500 rupees per square foot, then it will fall within 50 lakhs of rupees.
Anuj, is there anything going for 8,000?
Well, you would have
Tell me, I'll buy.
But if you really go a little bit outside the city, that's when you're going to be able to do it. So, if you go into Bhayander or Palava, those are the areas where you'll get it, as Mr. Anil Hiri says, 6,000, 5,500 rupees per square foot. But that phase, like really 1.5 hours, 2 hours of travel one way.
Back to where we started.
So there's no change in that definition at all.
Yes.
I think what Mr. Harish is saying is that change is only within the 4 metropolitan cities, 30 square meters just being replaced from carpet to built up. But the major change has been is that the affordable housing has been redefined as infrastructure. But on the area where you're right, that 60 square meters anyway he's not touched it. It's only the 30 square meters that has been.
I think it will be, as you say, a smaller place. Now, in other locations outside of Mumbai or the 4 metros, you may in fact still be able to get away with pricing which is not too far away from the affordable definition. Now, if you go by even the lowest construction cost, you still do tend to cross that 10-15 lakh kind of number at these sizes. I think the assumption is that you will also make smaller places. It just gives you a little bit more of flexibility, maybe 25-30% more flexibility, because the segment that is being sort of spoken for over here is a very different segment.
Yeah. And to the point that you made earlier, because with the interest rates coming down and say exemption on the tax units, the developer community is perhaps representing that the cost should start to come down.
Yes.
Of the affordable housing. So, maybe if it was 60 lakhs before, can it be pushed down to 50 lakhs and below, given that it is now an infra sector?
Okay. I want to be able to open the floor up for questions from the audience. If anybody has a question for our panelists right now, or anyone has a point that they noted in the budget that they would like to discuss.
Ashok?
We'll just give you a microphone.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
So, in my opinion, nothing has been touched between, the segment between 50 lakhs and upwards. In fact, they have been heavily cumbersome by the 10% surcharge. So the affordability to buy, flats more than between 50 lakhs and 1 crore, I think is going to diminish a lot. Yeah. And most of the developers are in that segment, if you're talking about MMRD in that area, MMR area, so we are all there. So we're not talking the city, we're not talking about 30 meters, we're not talking 60 meters, but we're talking about people who want to actually buy flats between 50 lakhs and 1 crore is a big disappointment.
It is a big disappointment. And Mr. Harish, I just want you to explain to our audience this and the viewers at home. Now, for someone who's, let's say, making 55 lakh rupees after all deductions, that's the taxable income. Tell us how this 10% surcharge applies. How is it calculated?
From what it appears from the budget speech, although of course one will have to go into the details, I think what he meant was that in the 50 lakh to 1 crore segment, the rate of tax is 30% plus surcharges, etc. He seems to want to increase the surcharge by 10% on that. Now the basic rate, the basic amount of tax between 50 lakhs and 1 crore, let's say a person is at the 99 lakh level, then on that 50 lakhs his normal tax at 30% would be 15 lakhs.
Yes.
Therefore, he might have to pay an additional 1.5 lakhs or so by way of tax on account of this surcharge.
And that is going to hurt. That is
that is going to
given
hurt.
The fact
and
that the savings through the budget is 12,500 rupees a year compared to what you're taking away at 1.5 lakhs.
So he'll take away from a few people and give it to a much larger base. That's what he seems to be saying.
Unkind Robin Hood. Jesh, do you want to make a point?
I think one of the important point which he talked about is the JDA taxation. I think that's going to give a great fillip, especially for the, I would say, the organized sector. Because today I think we have been seeing that there are developers who are kind of holding the land and they are not able to capitalize because of the JDA issues like AOP taxation and then the point of taxability. I think this amendment will, I think, bring a lot of activity in the real estate sector, especially for the, I would say, the organized sector. And I think will create more supply and will also help to, I think, reduce the prices also, because the stock will increase and the prices will automatically. So the gap between the demand and supply will reduce. So that will, I think, is a very good move, I think, that has been.
And Faye, I agree with what Jayesh is saying, is because, with RERA coming in, Faye, and we've discussed this on your show earlier as well, there is going to be consolidation in the developer community. And that consolidation would mean is that some of the developers would want the bigger developers, better developers, more credible developers to come in.
To lend their names.
To lend their names and then, to do something with the land. That land is not going to get sold because nobody's got that kind of money that is going to get sold. So ultimately it's a JV-JD that is going to happen. And the prohibition was that on JV-JD the taxation was immediate.
Yes.
And that's where the smaller developer was saying, how can I do a deal when just without receiving any money I have a tax liability sitting in my book? I think this one is a representation that once the consolidation will take place, it's easier for many of the larger players. And many of the players, if you look at it in the corporate space, whether it's Mahindra or Godrej or Tata Housing, they prefer to do JV-JD. And they were getting restricted with this taxation. Now, given that it has been put till the end of the project, I think you are going to see the developers who are wanting to do JV-JD with some of the bigger guys would be more proactively going out into the market.
I think the other thing that we need to address here is the fact that the finance minister did say that one of his concerns is job creation. One of the concerns of the entire government is job creation. Although I don't personally recall anything specific being mentioned in the budget as far as creating jobs were concerned. Now again, the real estate industry we know supports a large number of jobs across the country. Some of those jobs have been under threat over the last 2 months. Has this budget in any way soothed the pains of demonetization for the real estate sector? Will those jobs come back? Has it done anything towards encouraging more skilled jobs or unskilled jobs?
I would say not in the immediate term. You know, it's just not about the income tax. You know, it's about MOEF. It's about all the other approvals that come. It's about so many other things. You know. And I feel that environment is not created, you know, where the jobs will come up. I mean, most of the developers have reduced the number of staff. At least I am not, after looking at the budget, thinking, you know, that I'll have an advertisement done tomorrow for recruitment or anything of that kind, you know. So I don't think so. It's going to, just whatever stock I have of the land, that I may now expedite. That instead of that I was thinking I'll start them 1 year now from now, I will look at starting it now 3 months, 6 months from now.
But in that overall scenario, if we see about the overall economy of the country and the growth engine point of view, they have allocated a huge money on infrastructure sector, road, railways, and airports and the sector. So overall, the opportunity point of view, the country definitely with this government spending will definitely create direct jobs at various levels. There may not be government has given the push, but that will by default private sector would be able to work on the tier 2, tier 3 city, do some businesses, how with the infrastructure coming in that area and that region, that will definitely in time to come down the line should create...
To be fair, we've had very large infrastructure announcements being made in every budget for the last 3 years. Technically, infrastructure on the ground hasn't changed very drastically. What do you believe is different this year?
Number point of view, a percentage jump is there, but that what you say is very true. The ground realities of doing business, permission, sanctions and all, even in a government project also takes huge number of time. And the thing is, what is announced 3 years before, we see development happening. Even if we see city of Mumbai, the development has started happening. We see a lot of roads are digged for the Mumbai metro and the bridges and the announcement. So what was decided 2 years down before, now we can see something on the ground activities started happening. So further down the line, it should get the pace of it and should definitely benefit to the people.
Well, Anil Harish, here's the thing. When we went into the budget, my focus has been this entire time on the middle class. Will the middle class be empowered by this budget in any way? It seems like through all of these conversations, not directly.
Not directly.
And not indirectly in the short term either.
No, probably not.
Has the middle class been bypassed one more time?
It looks like they're just ignored, although there is some lip service paid to them, but there's not much for them at all.
And if we were talking about, you know,
in fact, because he said that he's reducing the rate of tax on companies by 1% or so, he should have actually brought it down for individuals also. That should have been a conscious decision to say that I've got 2 years more as finance minister, and then I must do something for every individual, not just for those in the lowest slab and for companies with turnovers of 50 crores, etc. Individuals need it much more.
Like you said, there was a fair amount of lip service paid. It was mentioned over and over again that, yes, the salaried class pays an unfair amount of tax, people who have TDS, which is what we were talking about before we went into the budget. And then when it came to the final numbers, there wasn't much there, and it actually seems like it was just lip service, and he completely walked past an entire group of citizens.
There should truly have been a standard deduction, as there used to be in the old days, of 20% or 25% of the salary without a cap. Earlier also there used to be a cap, but there's no reason for there to be a cap at all, because after all, if an individual were to do a business or to have a salary, then he would get so many deductions as a business person, because he'd get depreciation on his cars, traveling allowance, entertainment, etc., which he doesn't get when he's a salaried person. So he needed to bring that in.
I know I'm unfortunately alone on this panel, but I will bring it up. While there was again lip service to the women of this country, there is a Nirbhaya fund which is meant to be working towards women's safety, where was not even mentioned. We don't know whether it has received an allocation or not. It wasn't mentioned.
Actually, I read an item to say that there has been an allocation which has not been spent.
Yes, so the Nirbhaya
worse.
Fund has received an allocation of 1,000 crore rupees every year for the last 4 years. That money has not been spent at all. There have been parliamentary committees that have looked into the matter and said the money has not been spent. But this year in this budget, it hasn't even been mentioned. To make matters worse, the Mumbai local has not been mentioned at all, which means that while again there was lip service towards safety, just 2 days ago, we lost 2 people who fell off the train from overcrowding, and those, and we're losing people on a daily basis. Right. 8 people die on our trains every day, and there was no mention of the Mumbai local. There was no allocation towards safety of the Mumbai local. The Swachh Bharat campaign was mentioned. Open defecation was mentioned. Again, lip service, because we know Mumbai has of late been declared an open defecation-free city, which is a blatant lie by our government. So, when you combine all of these things together as a jigsaw puzzle, it just looks like the middle class, the urban middle class that is paying money out of its salaries, is receiving nothing but lip service from this government over and over again. There's no clean water, there's no clean air, there are no clean cities, we're not getting urban development, we're not getting relief on our taxes. So on some level, this was a populist budget. It was a bypass the middle class. It was a, I don't care if you stood in line for 2 months and supported demonetization. I have nothing to give you. Govind, do you want to respond to that?
I think the way I would make 3 points here. The way he would see this is the middle class has already got 0.8 to 1% interest drop thanks to demonetization. So, when the planners do this, they look at it.
Since we're talking about that, if you'll allow me to respond to that, and anybody who wants to respond to it in the room here, we realize that the banks have announced a cut. That cut has not been passed on to existing home loan borrowers. They are still at 9.5 to 10.5%. It is only a cut for new business. You want to respond? So I'm going to jump out bring you in. But it's true. None of the existing borrowers have been brought down to 8.5%, and they're being charged money if they want to be brought down. So respond to that. How is that a cut for the middle class?
Many existing borrowers actually do get that cut. It is industry practice generally for that cut to be asked for existing borrowers.
That is really unfair. I wish industry would ask us if you want your home loan to be raised when the rates go.
But I think large numbers of people, I can tell you that large numbers of people are repricing their loans. So it's not that existing borrowers don't know this. It's they are finding out very fast.
Okay, let me be honest here, and this makes me very livid as a customer, as a home buyer, that when the prices go up, the industry mercilessly increases prices with barely giving it a day. It takes a month to readjust, and even if I'm repricing, which means I have to shift to another borrower, there is a charge involved between 6,000 and 13,000 rupees. Yes. Why should I pay that charge as a customer? I've signed on for a floating rate, which is base plus a certain amount. I should receive base plus a certain amount. It is completely unfair.
I think that charge is largely reflective of the fact that the
lack
lender,
of ethics in the industry. Yes.
Beg your pardon?
Lack of ethics.
No, I would find it very difficult to agree to that. It's largely reflective of A, administrative costs, and B, the fact that the housing loan company usually takes a certain asset liability position, which doesn't change immediately. So it only partially is mitigated when the market asks for price reduction. So if you look at the cost of funding of, let's say, non-banks who haven't benefited, for instance, from this demonetization, they've not got all those benefits flowing through to them either. So I think that the charge is seen by many people as a relatively small charge. But coming back to the issue of the middle class, I just wanted to make one point that someone who earns 50 to 99 lakhs is not really a customer for a 50 to 99 lakh house. Yes. Usually the person who's buying a 60 to 70 lakh house is the person who earns maybe 12 to 15 lakhs or 20 lakhs, as a general practice. Those guys, I think the sense would be that they've got the benefit on the interest rate, although you disagree with that, and they've got this relatively small 12,500 rupee benefit.
I'm just going to interrupt you for a second because I understand the Prime Minister is making a statement right now. We're going to go directly across to the Prime Minister who's speaking.
इससे पूरे ट्रांसपोर्ट सेक्टर उसको इंटीग्रेटेड प्लानिंग में मदद मिलेगी। देश में परिवहन से जुड़ी आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति में रेलवे अब अपना योगदान और बेहतरीन तरीके से कर पाएगी। ये बजट कृषि क्षेत्र, ग्रामीण क्षेत्र, सामाजिक कल्याण, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, इन सभी क्षेत्रों में एक विशेष ध्यान आकर्षित करता है। निवेश बढ़ाने और रोजगार के नए अवसर पैदा करने की दृष्टि से सरकार की जो प्रतिबद्धता है वो इस बजट में साफ साफ नजर आती है। इन योजनाओं के लिए आवंटन में भी बहुत बढ़ोतरी की गई है। सरकारी निवेश को मजबूती देने के लिए रोड और रेल सेक्टर के लिए भी आवंटन में काफी वृद्धि की गई है। सरकार का लक्ष्य 2022 तक हमारे देश के किसानों की आय डबल करने का इरादा है, दोगुना करना है। नीतियां एवं योजनाएं उसी प्रकार से तय की गई है। बजट में सबसे ज्यादा जोर इस बार भी किसान, गांव, गरीब, दलित, पीड़ित, शोषित उन पर केंद्रित किया है। एग्रीकल्चर, एनिमल हस्बेंड्री, डेयरी, फिशरीज, वाटरशेड डेवलपमेंट, स्वच्छ भारत मिशन, ये सारे क्षेत्र ऐसे हैं जो गांव की आर्थिक स्थिति में बहुत बड़ा बदलाव भी लाएंगे और ग्रामीण जीवन जीने वाले लोगों के क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ में भी बहुत बड़ा बदलाव लाएंगे। बजट में रोजगार बढ़ाने पर भी भरपूर जोश दिया गया है। नौकरी के लिए नए अवसर पैदा करने वाले सेक्टर, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, टेक्सटाइल, उसको विशेष राशि दी गई है। असंगठित क्षेत्र में काम करने वाले लोगों को संगठित क्षेत्र में लाने के लिए भी व्यापक प्रावधान किए गए हैं। स्किल डेवलपमेंट बजट में काफी बढ़ोतरी की गई है। ये हमारे देश के युवाओं को ध्यान में रख करके और जो डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड है इसका भरपूर फायदा भारत को मिले उस पर ध्यान केंद्रित किया है। महात्मा गांधी नेशनल रूरल एम्प्लॉयमेंट गारंटी स्कीम, उसके लिए भी अब तक जितना हुआ है किसी भी वर्ष में ना हुआ हो इतना रिकॉर्ड आवंटन किया गया है। बजट में महिला कल्याण पर भी विशेष ध्यान दिया गया है। महिलाओं और बच्चों से जुड़ी योजनाओं के लिए बजट में वृद्धि की गई है। स्वास्थ्य और उच्च शिक्षा के लिए भी बजट में काफी बढ़ोतरी की गई है। और रोजगार के नए अवसर बनाने में हाउसिंग और कंस्ट्रक्शन सेक्टर, इसकी बहुत बड़ी भूमिका है। ये बजट ग्रामीण के साथ साथ शहरी इलाकों में भी हाउसिंग सेक्टर को मजबूती प्रदान करने वाला है। रेलवे के बजट में एक बात पर विशेष बल दिया है और वो है रेलवे सेफ्टी फंड। इस फंड की मदद से रेलवे सुरक्षा पर पर्याप्त धनराशि खर्च करने में मदद मिलेगी। बजट में रेलवे और रोड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर में काफी बढ़ोतरी कर दी गई है। डिजिटल इकोनॉमी के लिए जो कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव पैकेज दिया गया है उससे टैक्स चोरी की संभावनाएं कम होगी और अर्थव्यवस्था में काले धन के प्रवाह पर नियंत्रण संभव होगा। डिजिटल इकोनॉमी को एक मिशन के तौर पर शुरू किए जाने से आने वाले वर्ष में 2017-18 में 2500 करोड़ डिजिटल ट्रांजैक्शन के बड़े लक्ष्य को प्राप्त करने में बहुत बड़ी मदद मिलेगी। हमारे वित्त मंत्री जी ने कर प्रणाली में जो सुधार और संशोधन किए हैं उससे मध्यम वर्ग को राहत मिलेगी। उद्योगों की स्थापना होगी, रोजगार के अवसर मिलेंगे, भेदभाव के अवसर खत्म होंगे और सबसे महत्वपूर्ण पहलू है कि निजी निवेश को प्रोत्साहन मिलेगा। बजट में व्यक्तिगत इनकम टैक्स कम करने की घोषणा देश के मध्यम वर्ग को ज्यादा स्पर्श करती है, बड़ी महत्वपूर्ण है। 10% से एकदम 5% कर देना बड़ा साहसपूर्ण निर्णय है। करीब करीब हिंदुस्तान के अधिकतम करदाताओं को इससे बहुत बड़ा लाभ होने वाला है। आपने देखा होगा बजट में काले धन और भ्रष्टाचार के खिलाफ मेरी लड़ाई निरंतर चल रही है। पॉलिटिकल फंडिंग की चर्चा हमारे देश में बहुत होती रही है। राजनीतिक दल हमेशा चर्चा के घेरे में रहे हैं। चुनाव के अंदर डोनेशन एकत्र करने की नई योजना भी वित्त मंत्री जी ने देश की आशा, आकांक्षा और काले धन के खिलाफ की लड़ाई के अनुरूप आज प्रस्तुत की है। देश के छोटे और मध्यम उद्योग नौकरी के नए अवसर पैदा करने के सबसे बड़े स्रोत हैं। इन उद्योगों की पुरानी मांग रही है कि ग्लोबल कंपटीशन में, वैश्विक स्तर पर मुकाबला करने में उनको कठिनाइयां आ रही है। अगर इसके लिए टैक्स कम किया जाए तो हमारे लघु उद्योग, जो कि करीब करीब 90% से ज्यादा है देश में, और इसलिए सरकार ने छोटे छोटे उद्योगों को और उसमें परिभाषा में बदलाव करके उनके दायरे को भी बढ़ाया है और टैक्स को भी 30% से घटा करके 25% कर दिया है। यानी देश के उद्योग जगत के 90% से ज्यादा लोग इसका लाभ ले पाएंगे। ये फैसला, मुझे विश्वास है कि देश के छोटे उद्योगों को ग्लोबली कॉम्पिटिटिव बनने में बहुत बड़ी मदद करेगा। ये बजट देश के विकास के लिए एक मजबूत कदम है। इस बजट से रोजगार के नए अवसर पैदा होंगे, संपूर्ण आर्थिक विकास में मदद मिलेगी, किसानों की आमदनी बढ़ाने में ये पूरक होगा, नागरिकों को उनकी क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ को ध्यान में रखते हुए शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य, आवास, ये सारी चीजों में अधिक अच्छी सुविधाएं की संभावना बढ़ेगी और बिना वित्तीय घाटा बढ़ाए देश के मध्यम वर्ग के पास उसकी खरीद शक्ति बढ़े, उसके जेब में ज्यादा पैसे आए, उस दिशा में प्रयास है। एक प्रकार से ये बजट हमारा देश जो बदल रहा है उसको और अधिक तेजी से बदलने का प्रयास, एक प्रकार से हमारे सपनों से जुड़ा हुआ, हमारे संकल्पों से जुड़ा हुआ ये बजट एक प्रकार से हमारा फ्यूचर है, हमारी नई पीढ़ी का फ्यूचर है, हमारे किसान का फ्यूचर है। और जब मैं फ्यूचर कहता हूं तब उसका मेरा मन में एक मीनिंग है। ऐप से फार्मर्स, किसानों के लिए, यू से अंडर प्रिविलेज, दलित, पीड़ित, शोषित, वंचित, महिला, उनके लिए, टी से ट्रांसपेरेंसी, पारदर्शिता, टेक्नोलॉजिकल अपग्रेडेशन, आधुनिक भारत बनाने का सपना, यू से अर्बन रिजुविनेशन, शहरी विकास के लिए, और आर से रूरल डेवलपमेंट, ग्रामीण विकास के लिए, और ई से नौजवानों के लिए एम्प्लॉयमेंट, उद्योग साहसिकों के लिए एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप, एनहांसमेंट, नए रोजगार को बढ़ावा देने के लिए, नौजवान उद्यमियों को बढ़ावा देने के लिए मैं इस बजट के लिए इस फ्यूचर को प्रस्तुत करते हुए वित्त मंत्री जी को फिर से एक बार बधाई देता हूं और देशवासियों को उनके सपने साकार करने की दिशा में ये बजट एक बहुत बड़ी सहाय व्यवस्था है जो देश को आगे भी बढ़ाएगा, विकास की नई ऊंचाइयों को पार करेगा और देश में एक नया विश्वास का माहौल बनाने में ये बजट बहुत ही उपकारक होगा, ऐसा मेरा पूरा विश्वास है। फिर एक बार वित्त मंत्री को, वित्त मंत्रालय को, उनकी पूरी टीम को हृदय से बहुत बहुत बधाई।
That was the Prime Minister there with his message after the budget speech was announced by the Finance Minister, congratulating the Finance Minister and the Ministry. He said, this is a budget that will improve sentiment, that will put money back in the hands and the pockets of Indians and will make a great deal of difference to their spending power. And that was something he repeated a couple of times, so that's what I'm going to pick up on. He also mentioned, employment and the future. Let's just talk about spending power because post-demonetization, there was a tremendous need to bring confidence back into the market, to make Indians feel like they could spend again because they weren't spending. Mr. Harish, do you believe that this has put money back into the hands of Indians and allowed them the spending power that's needed to kickstart this economy? Because at a little over 1,000 rupees a month, that's not a lot of money.
No. The demonetization obviously reduced the amount of cash in hand. It did not reduce the amount of check money that people had or the bank balance. So that's not going to change on this account. 1,000 rupees per month, which will be with effect from April. So nothing's going to happen right now, and that's only in the segment between 2.5 and 5.
What about sentiment? Will it make a difference to sentiment, do you think?
Perhaps to some extent, but again, you have to actually see it coming, see it having an impact on you directly. Everyone will feel good, but by the time projects begin to roll out, where incomes maybe start coming in, dividends from companies come in,
yes,
or you earn more from the banks, or you pay less to the banks, it'll take some time.
It'll take some time. Anush, there was also something else that we didn't bring up in our earlier discussion, which is no transaction above 3 lakh rupees can take place in cash anymore. And we're not really sure how that's going to be implemented, but it was very clear. What sort of a difference do you think that will make to average Indian lives?
So clearly on the real estate side, it brings in more transparency and more governance, but equally it also impacts the saleability of many of the projects, certainly in the secondary market. Because say now it is very clear that above 3 lakh rupees cash is just not going to be traded and very difficult to then start to generate new cash. And that will curtail the cash and perhaps for the short-term slowdown some of the sales where there is a cash element that is required. Overall, I mean, to answer your first question, in terms of the confidence, I'm not so sure it was like an earth-shattering budget. I think the expectation after the demonetization was that it was going to be a really, structural change in the thought process that will be brought in.
You can watch live TV on our website mpnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/magicbricksnow. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at magicbricksnow. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/magicbricksnow.